Welcome to another episode of the Empowered Fertility Podcast, the place where we dive deep into all things fertility. I'm Dr. Brenna Squires, a clinical psychologist and fertility support coach, here to bring you the knowledge, resources, and expert insights you need to feel confident along your journey to parenthood. So let's get started. Hey everyone, I have another amazing topic for you today. We're going to talk about something that you probably have never heard about before, and that is bioenergetic testing and bioresonance. We're going to go over what it is and how it can help you on your fertility journey. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to this channel and make sure you tap the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Today's guest is a functional nutritionist and bioresonance practitioner, Shannon Salge. With over a decade of experience, she helps women and men heal their metabolism, hormones, gut health, and nervous system through a unique blend of functional and energetic approaches. So welcome, Shannon.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yes, and I'm super excited about this topic because I really never heard about it until a couple of months ago. So I'm excited that this is something that you specialize in, and this is something that you're going to go over with us today. And so to jump on in, I just want to know, what got you interested in bioresonance and energetic testing in the first place?
I know it's such a unique field, and truly not a lot of people are doing it. And I'll keep a very long story kind of short. Is I was a functional nutritionist, personal trainer. I started off my company doing primarily weight loss was the main thing with fitness and nutrition. Then I transitioned to more functional labs, functional nutrition, worked a lot more with clients with like deeper hormone issues, thyroid, gut. And then as I was doing this, I was reading so many, I think you do the functional labs too. I was reading all these functional labs and I was just like, man, this really doesn't tell the full story of the client, right? Yeah. And I started diving more into nervous system regulation work, which, as you understand, is a huge component, especially in a fertility journey. Oh my goodness. Or chronic health conditions, oftentimes linked, hand in hand. And so I started incorporating nervous system work. And so I brought in one of my practitioners as a somatic therapist, breathwork specialist. We started adding in nervous system work and a nervous system course, and it was beautiful. And then I was just like, many of my clients are very type A driven, high achieving women. They're like, great, I checked off all the boxes. I did all the modules. Okay. And they weren't really fully embodying or really embodying it. And I was like, I feel as if we can work more on an energetic level, things can move faster. And I didn't really know what that meant or how to approach it. I just knew I wanted to merge my very logical lab world with the energy world. And I didn't quite know what that, I didn't know how to do that outside of what I was already doing. I was like, there has to be something else. And then I was at a retreat I was in a mastermind, and one of the women she had PCOS, she had endometriosis. We were talking months and months prior. And she was like, I want to hire you, but I've done the functional labs. I've done all of these things. And she was like, I actually found something, and I think you're going to think it's really interesting. And I'm like, oh. And she's like, you're going to think it's crazy. Like, oh, I'm not going to think anything's crazy at this point. I've seen crazy energy healers do weird things, and I'm like, nothing phases me anymore. She's like, yeah, I've been doing these energetic tinctures, and they're like custom energy frequency in water. And I'm like, huh, okay, interested, don't understand, but tell me more. And that led me into bioresonance work. And it was, as a woman too, who's tapping into her intuition, my intuition was so strong after that conversation. I signed up, bought the equipment in full, multiple 5 figures. The next day, not having one question. I just knew, I was like, this is exactly what I've been looking for, and real quick backstory. My sister dropped out of college in 20 years ago. Because she got really, really ill. Nobody could figure out what was going on. We lived in Los Angeles at the time. We had access to a lot of really interesting doctors, holistic and more conventional. Nobody helped her until bioresonance work. And so I actually, when she told me this, I was like, wait a minute. My sister did 2 sessions with this and was fully healed, went back to school. Wow. And so I understood the power. I saw it firsthand. And so when it re-entered my life now 20 years later, I was like the perfect aligned timing.
Yes.
So yeah, that's how I got into this work, and I've never looked back. I actually changed my whole practice. Like, I don't really do functional labs anymore. If somebody really wanted them, we could, but it's just so much more integrative. And when I take a
Wow.
holistic root cause, root cause isn't like always a parasite or a progesterone deficiency. It's like it's so much deeper than that. And so we uncover so much. So I'm sure we'll get into that
Yes.
a little bit more. But yeah, that's how I
Yes.
got started.
Wow, that's amazing. That's an amazing story. And it just reminds me of how important it is for us to share our knowledge with other people because you may not have known about that unless that person shared it with you.
Yep. Yep, or reintroduced it. It was a perfect aligned timing with where I was at in my life, where I was very open to
Yes.
exploring different options, especially, as my career, as I started to evolve, so did my,
Yes.
business. And she just happened to sit next to me. I mean, she was a friend of mine. We had talked about, her healing journey prior, and I hadn't seen her for 4 months. She just happened to sit next to me. She's like, Shannon, I got to tell you about this because you're going to geek out about it. And, my whole life not only changed, I told her this in tears
Oh,
transparently a few weeks ago. I was like, you doing that has literally allowed me and will allow me to
yes.
heal hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. So that's like pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool. It's that ability to share this information, to share something that I have, and I know that it's really good and it's been helpful to share that with somebody else to be able to help them along their healing journey. And that's part of why this podcast exists to be able to share awareness about different procedures, different protocols, different barriers, different testing, different treatment options that you've probably never heard about, and just to give you that aha moment or that something that is something inside you that says, "This is what I need. This is the thing that I need right now in this season."
100%. And I mean, you and I met on coming on my podcast, and it
Yeah,
was the same thing as like bringing awareness to different modalities. You're not going to align with all of them. You
no.
might listen to this and be like, absolutely not. That's totally
Yeah,
cool. Right. But so often, like, why this work? Like, I've gotten the most amount of referrals from this work than I
yeah,
have in any of my other work because it's
yeah.
different. And,
It
people
is.
are sometimes scared to talk about it. Like, they'll talk to their friends and they're like, oh, what are you doing? You look good. Or you've been like, you don't have any of these stomach issues. And they're like,
Yeah,
just some like tinctures and supplements, and like they dive into it and they're like, you get into the energy work. You're like, oh,
yeah,
it's a custom energetic tincture. And people are
yeah,
either brush it off or super intrigued.
yeah,
And then that's usually how they connect with my world is just being like, I don't understand this. I don't know what it is, but I've seen the magic. So I
yeah.
want to get it on it.
Yeah, and I think it's probably more so the people like you said that have done everything that they can think of. They checked everything off the list and they say there's nothing left. I don't know what else there is. And so there's a couple of other things that they could probably try and this is one of them. So let's dive into the testing first and foremost. So what is bioenergetic testing?
Yeah. So, um, essentially, what the testing does is it scans the body's energetic field to detect stress patterns or imbalances before they usually show up as symptoms or even like lab abnormalities. So, it uses frequency to identify where the body's out of alignment. Whether it's physical, like everyone wants to talk about parasites right now, like
Mhm.
whether it's pathogens or toxins, or emotional or energetic. And so we do use equipment. Everything we do is virtual. So people, like clients, send me hair, nail, or saliva samples, and that's what I'm actually testing on my test plate. And then I'm running different scans, and I don't know, maybe 120 different scans that I'm running through.
Wow.
And so I take four main ones that I run for every single person. I take a root cause one that's going to give me so much data. Then we kind of run more into like physical or energetic supplementation, then imbalances with hormones, um, um, neurotransmitters, nutrition, vertebral issues, dental issues. That's a huge one we really often overlook. And then the emotional scan, which is always meaty. But then from there, I dive even deeper if a client has certain issues. So I have like fertility scans. But sometimes I don't even run that's not my first line of attack with a fertility client,
Mm,
because what I'm seeing on the root cause scan is so much deeper, you know?
mm,
Maybe it's liver overload or toxin overload, right? Maybe it's very, very deep into generational emotional patterning. And so I'm diving deeper into that, right? And so I'm kind of using each lab and then letting that tell the story of what I run next if I run other things.
wow.
And then for my fertility clients, I'm always adding in additional custom frequencies around
Mm,
fertility and around certain things I see going on. Like one of my clients I just did yesterday, we're running frequencies around. Um, she had some imbalances in the corpus luteum and the follicular cells and the um, oh placenta. We have HCG, certain like different issues with like the yeah, just like low frequency around that. So then I'm adding in certain frequencies around that as well, to their scans. So it's not always just a physical thing. There's
yeah.
also a lot of the energetic. So
Yeah, and I had so many questions with that, but my one of my questions I wanna I wanna ask is, how are you telling about the HCG and the placenta and the follicular? Are you getting a sample of the hair, the nail, the saliva? You're getting all of these samples, or are you just getting one?
yeah, so this is a good question because this is hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
Um, and truthfully, I get it because I was there too. Um, so a lot of the data is ran from their name and their birth date and one sample. But what we're not doing is like an HTMA test, right, where we're testing the hair follicle from the root for a hair tissue mineral analysis or
Yeah.
urine or something like that. We're not testing on a protein level. We're testing on
Mm,
an energetic level, right? So what's fascinating about this, truly fascinating, is that when we're running scans, whenever I run the scan, meaning like time of day, I am picking up what the body is telling me that day. So a good example of that is my sister was coming home, she broke her elbow, and we had ran scans before, and I was like, let me run some scans on you just to help facilitate the healing, right?
yeah.
Because it's magical with pain relief, with joint pain. Um, and one of the first things that showed up on her scan was electromagnetic rays, right? Like her body had been impacted by the x-rays. And I had, so that's probably not going to show up on a lot of other scans, hopefully, at
Mm,
least now that we've cleared it, hopefully. But that was very interesting, right? And so,
yeah.
sometimes when clients come in and I'm looking at, there's certain things around the throat, I'm like, okay, could this be energetic? Like you need to speak up a little bit more? Could this be that you're having issues with GERD? Could this be issues around, something physical? Or is it like, were you sick? So sometimes I don't always know. And
Mm,
like one of my clients has a deep reoccurring strep infection. Like she couldn't clear it, was on 4 antibiotics back 10 years ago. I found it in multiple different places in her scans. But throat was coming up and she's like, oh no, I was sick when you ran those scans. Okay. So at least I know a little bit on what's maybe still lingering versus like
yeah.
acute, right? But
Yeah.
but that's what's important when you give me a hair sample. It doesn't necessarily matter when you took it, and it doesn't have to be from like the root or something like that. It just has to be something where we can tap into your body's energetic field because our body holds energy. So usually the saliva, the hair, the nails, that's how we test it.
But you do all of those 3 things, not just 1?
You only need to send me one. Some
Oh,
people,
interesting.
particularly my beautiful type A clients, send me all
Yeah, we're gonna send everything.
send everything. It doesn't truly matter, but if that makes somebody feel more comfortable, then send it all in. I will put it all on my test plate 100%.
Yes.
But it is energy, right? So the
Yeah.
more isn't always better. And that's something I've also had to learn working with homeopathics and working with energy
Mhm.
versus supplements is
Yeah.
more is not better. A lot of
Right.
times less is more.
Mhm.
People feel better on just less things. I've seen people take one drop of their tincture, and
Mhm.
sometimes that's been too much. Like it's crazy. You think, well, this is just a water tincture. Like, why is this? The frequency is, it just aligns differently with everybody. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's just making me think, how does it work? So let's use the hair sample for example. When you're scanning the hair sample, how does the actual testing work? Is it kind of like a photocopy where they look at it, or is it reading it somehow? in a different way?
Yeah, so it's picking up frequency. So that the
Mhm.
machine and the equipment picks up that frequency, and through that frequency, it goes into my equipment or my software, and that's
Okay.
where we're running the kind of scan. So it's not taking any
Okay.
pictures or anything like that. It's just reading that energy through what I'm putting in my software and then
So
what's
you're
on.
putting the sample inside something and the machine is reading it and that it's reading the what it's reading is sending it to the software to
Correct.
interpret.
Yeah, and so the
Okay.
different scans I'm running, it's testing it against thousands and thousands of different frequencies. So it's
Gotcha.
testing against your body's energetic field on those frequencies versus
Yes.
putting something in a urine cup and testing the protein from that or testing, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So we're able to see so like I mean on average I have about anywhere from 250 to 350 for especially a first time client signatures that come up. It's not even something like a Dutch, which I'm sure you run tons of, very gives us a lot of information. It's still going to be like 20, 25 things that show
Mhm.
up.
Yeah.
So the hard, I don't say hard, but definitely the innovative work I do as a practitioner and the time consuming part is taking all that information and then putting it in something that's one, just accessible to the mind of the person that I'm talking to, not
Yes.
overwhelming, but then also that gives them a solid game plan. Because I'll tell you, when I
Yeah.
talk to somebody, I'm not telling them about all 250 signatures that are showing up.
No.
I'm only telling them the important ones or the ones that overlap, but also knowing I'm imprinting, meaning taking the signatures into a whatever modality. Usually people choose a tincture, which is a water alcohol structured water base, but we can imprint into patches, lasers, quartzes, things like that. But they're still getting all of the frequencies, even if we don't talk about it. So a good
Yeah.
example of this is I'm never bringing up cancer if it's showing up, right? Never talking about that. That's also crossing my line diagnostically, right?
Mhm.
But it shows up on a lot of scans, not because everybody has cancer. We all have cancer cells. But, on a cellular level, many,
Yeah.
many people are just not functioning correctly. Their cells are very much, very much not communicating properly. That's a huge issue I see with hormone
Yeah.
regulation, where we've tried literally everything
Yeah.
under the freaking sun, and then I
Except
run
for
a
that.
scan and I'm like, their cells literally can't even like take in any
Yeah.
of this information.
Yeah.
Um, so we imprint that, and I just tell them like, hey, we're going to help a little bit of the cell health, but you know, I'm not going to explore that a little bit more
Yeah.
unless there was something in a certain dilution that made it
Yeah.
where we had a conversation about maybe next steps. That doesn't come up ever, but it could.
No. Yes. Awesome. There was something that I wanted you to explain a little bit more because there are maybe people who are listening thinking, you lost me at frequencies. I was tracking and then all of a sudden you said frequencies and I'm looking at these different frequencies. Can you share a little bit more about frequencies?
Yeah, a frequency, it's
Mhm.
a vibration.
Mhm.
And so, what we all tend to forget is we are all vibrating beings. Everything is vibrating. So you look at something solid and it is actually vibrating, right? And so that is what frequency is, vibration. So it's a repeating wave of energy. And everything in your body, from your liver to your hormones to your emotions, have a frequency. And so when it's in balance, that vibration is really smooth, it's harmonious, right? But when it's stressed, physically, emotionally, environmentally, that frequency gets distorted. And so
Mm.
that's kind of what we're picking up, are where there's imbalances in that. It's kind of like tuning into a radio station, when the signal's like really clear, you hear the music like really well versus like it being really static and fuzzy.
Mhm.
That's kind of what happens when the body is under, certain stressors. Or a really good way, I might lose people here, but that's okay. I'm going to say it anyways. I work remotely with people and sometimes they don't have time to send me hair, or it's a very acute situation. Like I was working with a baby in the NICU, and we can take their name and birth date, and we can tap into their body as well and run scans and then send remote imprints, meaning sending the
Mhm.
frequency to them.
Mhm.
And it's the way that I explain it is it's kind of like your phone number. Like we can call that phone number at any time, and your body can tap into that, right? Or it's like Wi-Fi. We can't see it, we know it's working, all around us. But But that's how I work sometimes with my remote clients who know and trust me, and they don't think that's weird because they're like, I don't
Yeah.
literally understand, but I will tell you that baby in the NICU got out the next day after
Yeah.
being there for like weeks with no progress, right? Or like an acute situation, like my sister breaking her elbow, right? Same thing. She was like, I don't know what you did, but I have not improved in 6 weeks, and suddenly I feel better, right? So that's kind of another interesting way to explain
It
it.
yeah, very, very interesting. I've never heard about that one, and I don't know if I don't know if I'm there yet, but I have been learning more about frequencies, and it sounds like what you're saying is everything everything has a frequency, kind of like a tune that it has, and what the test picks up on is the abnormalities in those frequencies, and because it already knows what those frequencies should be, it knows what the abnormalities could be, it's comparing what the sample has compared to the other things, kind of like making a match. Is this a match? Is this a match? Is this a match?
Yep.
And if it's a match for the abnormal, then it pings,
Mhm.
this is the problem?
That's exactly right, actually. So it runs through all the different things in the scan one by one,
Yeah.
or on what's called a causal level. So it'll either run it, depending on how I set up the test, it'll run either picking the best frequency for this problem, or is this a problem on a causal level that we really need to
Yeah.
address? And then it pings it, puts it in the software, puts it in the test, and then it'll tell me different dilutions, which won't matter
Mhm.
at all to you, but different dilutions that it's in, meaning is this more physical? Is this more energetic?
Okay.
As well as is this something that's more stressed in the body or more weakened in the body?
Hmm.
And so, that's an important thing to understand too is
Yeah.
weakened is worse. That means it's been under stress for a lot longer of a period of
Yeah.
time. And or with like hormones, it can mean that you're taking the right supplement, but your body's not
Yeah.
absorbing it actually, versus stress where we might be actually overdoing it.
Yeah.
Or it's just more of an acute thing. So depends on depends on the scam.
Depends on it. Yeah. It sounds like it's almost, I don't know if you use these words, but categorizing it. So once it makes the match to say this is the problem, it categorizes it to say, is it in this area or in this area? And where is the problem been going on for a while, or is this something that's going on just now?
Yeah, exactly. So when something
It
comes up,
organizes it.
yeah. So like I'm just looking at like a client who one of the things she came in was GI issues as well as fertility issues, but like it'll categorize certain things. So like dopamine came up for her, brain and nervous system, right? But it'll also show meridians and different meridians that are out of alignment or mental or emotional signatures. So it'll categorize certain things. So even like progesterone doesn't always show up as a hormone signature. It could show up as something like um, brain nervous system, right? It could show up as a mental emotional signature. So it depends on also how it's categorized, and why we look at it. So yeah.
And kind of just going back to a basic question that I probably should have asked earlier, but what role does just energy in general play in our overall health and fertility? So why do we need to know this?
Why? I mean, we are all energy and our body holds emotional memory, right? And I think again, I'm speaking here as somebody who is very logical, that didn't understand the emotional side. I was for literally ever was like, I'm not stressed, right? I'm not stressed. I'm not stressed. Stress doesn't play a role, okay, trauma, blah, whatever. You need a supplement, right? And again, I have an autoimmune disease. Like I have overcome incredible health issues. So I know the depths of hell with health, and what it takes to overcome it. And why I mention that is because it's not really until people truly understand these deep rooted energy and traumas. We all have trauma, and trauma doesn't have to be like, oh, I got beat, right? They could be small things, but our body just kind of holds on to it. And our body, it's called, if you've read the book, Our Body Keeps the Score,
Yeah.
it traps grief, it traps fear, it traps resentment. And that can show up in the uterus, that can show up in the ovaries, that can show up in the thyroid. And so energetic healing helps the body recalibrate. And so I have seen way, way, way quicker results with, especially around fertility, when we work with the energy as well. You can't ignore the physical,
Yeah.
right? But at the same time, there's only so much freaking chaseberry and that we can add to a client before.
Yeah.
Why is our body not producing progesterone? Why is our body holding on to all these
Yeah.
toxins hormones and it can't eliminate estrogen, right? And so it's
Yeah.
like we have to look deeper into it. So did that answer your
Yeah.
question?
It did, definitely, because when you said a couple of different things and then you finished it with recalibrate, that's really the basis of this, in that we have this frequency and all of these things that we do to our body, our mind, our spirit over time shakes the body in a way that kind of makes it off and makes us store negative emotions, makes us have problems with our organs, and makes all of these things not work properly. And like you said, when we can find out where our energy is and what we can do to recalibrate it to where it should be,
Yeah.
then that's where you see that overall health. Because it sounds like what you're saying is overall health is when your frequency is at a certain point, is at a certain level, or is at a certain balance.
Balance is good because it's never perfectly aligned. It will never be
Yeah.
perfect. Our body's always
Ebb
changing,
and flow.
changing, which is why if you do scans right after another, after another, after another, it's never going to show up the same, which is very
Yeah.
frustrating as a logical brain person.
Yeah.
Um, but but yes, that's essentially what the energy, like the tinctures do, right? Is it's
Mhm.
not a supplement trying to fix a problem. It's
Yeah.
where is your body out of alignment and how can we get your body to remember, and that's what the frequency
Mhm.
does. It's helping your
Yeah.
body remember how to function on a more optimal level. And these are the
Yeah.
frequencies that are going to help balance the problems, right? Instead
Yeah.
of like, again, I love, supplements for there's there's the right time and place. Another thing actually I'm going to mention with the supplements that's fascinating is on the scans, I only pull the supplements that I test the body against positively, that the body is asking for.
Oh,
And that's
neat.
really important to understand because when you're dealing with a client, maybe also a complex, you know, case, I don't know how their body's going to respond. And oftentimes I might think as my, functional brain, we're going to do these certain protocols and the body is not asking for any of
Yeah.
that. It's asking for it energetically and
Yeah.
maybe one or two supplements in the physical, usually something like a binder is something that's almost always in a physical unless somebody's really sensitive. Maybe so, especially with hormone stuff,
Hmm.
probably only 30% of the time I'm actually pulling in, at least on the first session, pulling in more hormone support supplements.
Yeah.
We're working a lot on the energy, usually a lot of high toxins in the body as well, right? Um, and then I just see where the body leads me. And then if we do another rescan,
Yeah.
do we need to pull more stuff into the physical now? Wonderful. Yes, then we do it then. But it's almost pulling back because that's one thing I got
Mhm.
frustrated with the
Yeah.
functional health worlds is it was just turning into medical with supplements. And I was
Mhm.
like, we're just, oh, problem here, take the supplement, problem here, take the supplement.
Yeah.
And pretty soon somebody's on 30 freaking supplements and they're not getting that much better.
Yeah.
So, I imprint everything and then usually only have clients on 3 to 5 additional supplements. It
Yeah.
depends on the client, sometimes
Yeah.
more, sometimes less. But regardless, just doing the energy tinctures alone is
Yeah.
where people see the most benefit, which is wild.
Yeah. And with this testing, this is something that you can do with men and women, right?
Yep. Yep. So I do work with men and women, and I was joking with you before the call is, usually the men come in like, I don't get it. I don't understand it. They don't have a lot of questions because they don't really even know what to ask and they don't want to ask the wrong question. So they're
Yeah.
just like, I don't know, but I've seen everybody raving about it and everybody's been just like seeing all these benefits. So I
Yeah.
just whatever, if it works, fantastic. And it does. And so that's the crazy part. So yeah, men, women, and then I joked, I mean, I work with animals too. That's not my main population, but I've seen crazy results working with like some of my clients, cats and
Yeah.
dogs who had like chronic health issues. Because when they have
Wow.
chronic health issues, you store that trauma, you store that energy. It affects you physically as well.
Yeah.
So because again, their energy. I don't talk about that a lot because I start to lose people and they're like, oh, this is weird. But that's okay. Again, the results kind of speak for themselves.
Yeah.
Um,
And what are some common patterns that you see with men and with women when it comes to fertility?
Stress, dude. It's the
Stress.
biggest one. I mean, mycotoxins is a big one.
Mm.
And that's something I really like working on with bioenergetics because it's not often picked up on normal labs. And that can be a big factor. Um, Liver, always liver. But a lot of low T in men and women, but That's again a stress driver though. Like I'm going to look at testosterone on a guy, I can give you all the mock on the damn world, but are you running on fumes? You know, do you have trapped trauma? We also, one of the big things in the emotional scan is generational trauma, which you can
Mm,
choose to believe in or not, and that's fine. But you have a lot of trauma that you carry on from generation to generation. And so we see that a lot as well, usually on the maternal side
yeah.
for men. Um, and so those are probably the top three. And the men don't want to talk usually quite as much about the energy, and that's okay. I imprint the tinctures, maybe ask how open or willing they are to explore it, and kind of go from there,
Yeah.
and just meet them where they're at. But that's definitely a big one. A lot of gut stuff too. I mean, guys tend to just think farting and being bloated is like pretty normal, right? But you know, if you don't have optimal gut health, you don't have optimal hormone health. So, you know, those are probably, yeah, those are probably
Yeah.
the biggies.
It's interesting that you say that because stress and liver and gut are ones that we commonly hear with other types of testing as well, but it's neat
Oh,
to see that it's generalizing to this type of testing as well. Even at that cellular level, it's saying, I know you're stressed. I know the liver is being overburdened. I know there's gut issues and then also mycotoxins. And it makes me think about other parts of the body. And is the bioenergetic testing, are they able to provide insight into like egg and sperm quality or ovulation or implantation, things like that?
well, so the tricky part here is it can't be it's not diagnostic.
Okay.
And so, you know, if I were to tell you the quality of your egg, that's diagnostic.
Mm,
You know, now I can show you the different frequencies that are off in the female reproductive system, but I can't tell you your reserves or your quality
yeah.
per se, right? But if there's certain things that are coming up on, you know, maybe supplementation, maybe the root cause scan that are alluding to more egg quality, you know, lack of egg quality or something like that, then that's going to point me towards that direction. But I can't straight up tell you that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, you know, especially with implantation issues, a lot of times it's a trauma based issue,
Yeah.
especially if you've had something like, you know, a miscarriage before, which I know is a really sensitive subject. The body hold on to that. And so often, too, I see with people who have done that, they want to
Yeah.
try right away, right away, right away. They don't give their
Yeah.
body that time to grieve, nor also remineralize or
Yeah.
balance, which is so difficult. And I totally, you know, that emotional journey is huge.
Yeah.
Um, but that's also, you know, some other things that I can kind of just see and start piecing the puzzle together,
Yeah.
while also staying in my lane of not being a diagnostic practitioner.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
you know, that's always, as you know, a fine line.
Yeah, and that's good. And so it sounds like even with other things like PCOS, endometriosis, thyroid, those aren't things that you can diagnose, but are they things that you can kind of pick up on those themes?
Oh yeah, all the
Okay,
damn.
yeah.
You know, I can't say somebody has PCOS. I could say maybe explore with your doctor because we're really showing some signs that PCOS
Yeah.
could do something.
Yeah.
Thyroid is a huge one because it's not going to show up on labs for like 50% of people. Uh, you know, even on an HTMA, you know, you're going to see a
Yeah.
lot of subclinical hypothyroidism symptoms. We go a level deeper. We can see the minerals, but we can also, you know, test it on a cellular, not just like a protein level. So, thyroid is huge, 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 especially with fertility, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean you have a thyroid issue. Doesn't mean you have hypothyroidism or
Yeah.
Hashimoto's, right? But it does mean that there's imbalances in the frequency of your thyroid, which again, liver, gut, thyroid, heavy metals, like all of those are
Yeah.
going to contribute to them.
Yeah.
So while yes, I love labs and I oftentimes do read labs, that's something different that I do as bioenergetic practitioner is I
Mhm.
am working sometimes with functional or like actual physical labs as well, and not just energy. And there's a lot of times a correlation too. You know, if I
Yeah.
suspect there might be some thyroid issues, like I do want them to go get a full thyroid panel and
Mm.
also TPO, right?
Yeah.
Um, but then again, what do you do with that information? Cool, my
Correct.
TP is low. We're gonna go right back to the things that the scan said, anyways.
Anyways.
So, but you know, it's always good to have both, especially with fertility. I do like the blood work
Yeah.
as well as the bioenergetics to
Yeah.
track it. That's very important, um,
Yeah.
thyroid, progesterone, all of that stuff.
Yeah, and I like how you said, kind of bringing it back to something when we talked about earlier, where you said it kind of gets it at the, again, we're at the cellular level, we're going very deep, but it gets it before there's a big problem. It's the red flag before the siren goes off. And again, if the siren's going off, you don't really need the energetic testing to say you've got a problem. You know there's a problem. And so it's these little red flags that show that there are signs, which is probably why, like you said, it's signs, not necessarily diagnostic. Will show you that there's signs of these issues, and then what are we going to do about it? Because like you said, we can compare it to other lab work, we can compare it to other things, and we can confirm and say, yes, bioenergetic testing said the same thing, but we're
Yeah.
still left with the same question of, now what?
Well, and that's like one of my favorite questions because oftentimes, this is what I get with clients, right? Their doctors won't run the labs. They won't run any of their functional labs. Their labs are fine. They don't know what to do next. And, you know, they want to go and run $300-400 in expensive blood panels. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you can do that. And, or we could also explore this a little bit differently if you're open to it, because if you get that blood work, then what's the next step? I don't care if well, that's not a lie. I always care if your progesterone's low, but that's not, what are you going to do about it? Right? Are you going to go be on a progesterone pill? Right? If that's the route you want to go, fine. But it's so much deeper than that, right? Because if you've got a progesterone issue, you've got something else in your body that's off as well, right?
Mhm.
And so with bioenergetics, even if you just run a scan, it's like, okay, cool, I have all this information. And the game plan going forward is you have the tinctures to
Yeah.
actually move the body, because that's what I can't stand even with functional practitioners. Like, you can get all the information, then what? Then you're overwhelmed, you're
Mhm.
overstimulated, you're already probably overwhelmed going into it. Now you feel like
Yeah.
your body's broken and you don't even know what to do. And then you get this analysis paralysis on where to start, so you don't start at all. So
And then they give you like 20 supplements or more with a long checklist of things that you have to do.
yep,
And like you said, type A person will do all the checklists, take the 20,000 supplements, and still not feel better.
yep.
And it
And
goes back to we need to go back to that cellular level.
yeah, and energetic, right? Because it does have to be both. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you this, it's a much more beautiful journey when you can embrace both. Because coming from somebody, again, that was just high strung, go, go, go all the time, I thought I was always fine, but it was like I didn't have this true beauty and peace in my life at all. Right. And it was just like doing the things, doing the supplements, checking off the box.
Yep.
A lot of my worth was in my ego and in my accomplishments, both in my health and my, career.
Yeah.
And it was like, when you expand deeper than that, you
Mhm.
unlock
Yeah.
much deeper things outside of the X goal you have, like trying
Yeah.
to have a baby. We hyper focus on that, and then we forget all of this other life that's going on around us.
Yeah.
So it is a different kind of journey.
Yeah, it's shifting your perspective to more than just what's happening right now, because there's
Yeah.
other things going on at that deeper level. And so let's kind of move forward with that. With once we have an imbalance, so we've done the testing, we've identified tons of imbalances. What happens next?
Yeah.
You
So
mentioned tinctures a lot, so I'm guessing tinctures is part of it.
yeah. Um, So I always run the scans not with a client. That's something important to note because it takes me 30, 45 minutes just to run the scans alone, sometimes longer. And then it takes me a few hours to put all the data together. And so when I meet with a client, we're going over, the key findings that I'm
Mhm.
finding. I'm going over the main things that I find important for the body. Then if we're needing to make, any food adjustments, if we're going to do any meridian kind of work or energy work, if they're open to that, I tell them what kind of is coming up blocked in the scan, especially for my fertility clients. Conception vessel tends to like show up a lot, liver. Um, then we go into supplements. Do we need to take the supplements, like physical supplements? Which ones? These are the ones I think are best. And then I do briefly explain the tinctures and how many tinctures. Usually I have two per client, one with just the emotional scan and one with everything else. It kind of just depends on the client, though. Sometimes it could be more than that. I personally split the emotion with everything else because sometimes people can be more sensitive to one versus the other. And
Mhm.
that way I can titrate it a little bit differently with the
Yeah.
two. Um, and so I imprint all of their signatures into that custom tincture, which again, the tincture is structured water. That's pretty much a water alcohol base. For my kids, like I use a laser instead, or a patch, or if somebody's like, can't remember supplements. I hate supplements. I don't want to take any. Then I might use a patch or even a quartz. Some people are into that. Um, you know, so then we kind of make sure that they feel good about their game plan moving forward. And that's kind of how our sessions end if they're just doing a scan. If they're in
Yeah.
our full coaching program, that's a little different, especially clients with fertility. We're diving a lot deeper into the nutritional side, maybe the drainage and detox side. We're just kind of further amplifying that, but we're coming at it from a space of not guessing
Yeah.
and having a roadmap that you're
Yes.
literally designed. And what's really cool too, I will say, like working with my coaches is just being like, you know, um, coach, I know that you feel frustrated and this client feels frustrated but I just want to say everything that you've been doing is
Mhm.
spot on. And so it's really cool to understand that we are all doing the right things and we have a game plan moving forward for why it hasn't been working. Again,
Yes.
that like cellular disruption, the emotional side trauma. Oh my God, a huge one. Um, Methylation. Those are probably the big ones that I see that we aren't pulling a supplement for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can give you like phosphatidylcholine all day long, but it still might not do the full trick. So
Yeah. Absolutely. And I'm looking at this list thinking that all of this is great that you're going over the findings, you're doing the food adjustments and looking at the different things that their body needs. And I want to talk a little bit more about the tinctures because you mentioned it a couple times and you said the tinctures that have the structured water as well as an imprint. And just to clarify, it's the imprint of the frequency that their body needs. Is that correct?
yeah, so all of the
Okay.
stuff from the scans, all of the
Yeah.
frequencies that come up on the scans, um, I so an imprint just means I'm taking those frequencies,
Mhm.
I'm putting it into a carrier, which the imprint is that and putting it on the machine and allowing that to move in. Then we have to have alcohol in the water to structure the water so it holds
Yeah.
frequency. Because water doesn't hold frequency for a long period of time, and normally our clients' protocols are 3 to 6 weeks long, and
Okay.
so we want it to hold that frequency, which is why you can't
Yes.
do this like normal water for like my
Yeah.
kids, like for like kiddos or dogs. I'll do colloidal silver sometimes.
Okay.
Somebody that has a past history of alcohol addiction, which is another one too. But it just doesn't hold it quite as long as
Yeah.
vodka or glycerin.
Yeah. And
So
so with that, you put it in the little tincture bottles. You have that the frequency in there. Is this something that they take orally? Is it something that they take topically? How do they take this?
yeah, under their tongue, it's just water. So they'll just
Okay.
take their tincture, they'll put it under their tongue or just in a small glass of water. If they have other homeopathics that they are utilizing, they can put
Okay.
it all together. And that's it. All they do is they just take it under their tongue, which is why, as weird as it sounds, it's also been a huge blessing for a lot of people because it's less. It's just less to do. And so many
Yeah.
people, they delay getting their journey, like their health journey, because they don't want to take the 20,000 supplements. They don't even want to change their food. They don't want to
Yeah.
change their environment. They just want the magic pill. And I'm not telling you this is the magic pill, but I'm going to tell you that it's like magic because I've seen people who haven't made
Yeah.
like, don't get me wrong, when people make those changes, they see better results, but you can still see results without even changing that and
Yeah.
just having that body kind of balance out a little bit more too. So, I do get different kinds of people, the people that want the easy fix and also the people that are, they have tried all of the things, but I
Yeah.
really hope, like, I love working with clients that are also like, nothing's really wrong. I just want to see where else I can optimize.
Yeah.
And that's so cool too, versus being like, I'm dying. you I love all of them, but it's
Yeah.
it's definitely a different vibe. So
Yeah. Can you share a couple of either stories or shifts that you've seen where people have taken these drops and they'll come back and say, I've noticed these benefits within a few days or weeks. Can you share some of those stories?
literally, like, I get them every day. I mean, it's wild
Oh,
how
good. Share away.
again, when I share them, it's hard because I don't want people to feel like if I don't see a result in 1 week, that it's not working. Because some people, it's a lot more deeper rooted issues, right?
Yeah.
But, I work a lot with gut. Like, gut's a big one because that's an immediate, like, I'm less bloated, I'm less constipated, I'm not having diarrhea as much. So those are very immediate versus, like,
Yes.
some of the deep emotional stuff where we're retraining the body. But definitely, like, I mean, like this week, the guy I just told you about, or I was talking about on here, was like, he's like, I'm not going to the bathroom 6 times a day. It's dropped down to like normal two, three. He's been on the tinctures for 5 days. He's like, I'm less bloated. It's not happening as frequently. He's like, my cravings have gone down. He was having like crazy intense sugar cravings. He's like, those have been absolutely cut down. He's like, they're not
Nice.
away, but I can, it's not like this insatiable, craving that I'm having. Another client who's having um, like crazy diarrhea for like 6 days, contacted me. She's like, I don't know what else to do. I've like literally, I did a remote imprint that I was telling you about that I know it's hard to understand. She's also a friend of mine. I did a remote imprint before she even picked up her tinctures and it stopped that night. Never came back. And so now she's on tinctures for that, because there was obviously some other issues on why that was happening, but it just
Mhm.
immediately stopped,
Wow.
which was crazy. A client who, fertility issues, gut issues, got pregnant within 3 months after having done everything, working with us. Like we had worked on so much, she had felt so much better, but like still wasn't pregnant. And I was like, what the hell? And then 3 months later, pregnant. And we didn't
Yeah.
do anything super crazy or specific other than a lot of hers was perfectionism,
Mm.
trauma, things like that. It was very energetic. But we did all the physical first, which I think is also why it helped,
Yeah.
why it was a much easier transition going into that as well. Um, so I guess those were this week. I'm trying to think of some other ones that came through.
Yeah,
Um,
those are good. I mean, just hearing that people can notice a change, and like you said, gut ones are the easiest ones to identify. You're bloated or you're not bloated. You have a stomach ache or you don't have a stomach ache. It's a little more difficult to say, I'm feeling a little bit more energized and less perfectionistic, or I'm feeling a little
yeah.
less overwhelmed.
True, but actually that is the biggest thing emotionally I see people is they feel more grounded
Oh,
and
nice.
reactive. And
Mm,
so a lot of times they don't really sometimes I have to call it to their attention and they're like, "Oh, you're right. Like I'm not reacting quite so much as I did. Small things that used to bug them don't bug them anymore. They're
yeah.
sleeping better. They're more energized. Those are usually big ones too. Sleeping better,
Better.
energy, less cravings is a big one too. But yeah, just this feeling of being like grounded is a really important thing to feel. I'm like, your anxiety might not 100% go away in a week or even one set of tinctures. We might have to dive into this a little bit more,
Yeah.
but you're gonna feel a shift, right? And that's the crazy part is most of them, they're not on a cortisol manager, right? They're not on adrenal supplementations. They're just
No.
usually, some of them are. Some of them I
Yeah.
have on homeopathic, some of them I have on herbals, but a lot of times it's just through the frequency. So
Nice. And so I was just thinking too, with someone who has experienced multiple miscarriages, and that does a lot of things to the body, both emotionally and physically. Is this something that could help them move through the physical and the emotional aspects of a miscarriage?
yeah, and I think that's really one of the only things that truly can.
Mm.
Um, I will preface this. I am a big fan of therapy. If somebody is going through that, if they're open to that. I don't find it works for everybody. So I do something I have in my scans is I run them against different energy healing modalities like EFT is a kind of more common one. Emotion code is another one. IASIS. There's different kinds as well because energy is amazing and doing physical work as well to get through that can expedite the process too.
Yeah.
But yes, it's like why is our body is going to hold on to that whether we believe it or not. And
Mhm.
I see this in 60-year-old clients that have
Wow.
had miscarriages, right? Or I've seen this even more deeply on clients whose parents had abortions. And, our body holds on to that and it gets passed generationally too.
Yeah.
Right. And so yeah, just getting that body to remember, on a physical level, what's going on, what do we maybe need to help, but also on an energetic level, what's going on, and helping the body move through that in a much different way. So it can be a really nice collaboration with also, this is something I'll emphasize before we maybe wrap it up, but it also doesn't have to be on its own. It can be
Mm.
collaboration, right?
Yeah.
Like people in the functional world want to say, I'm the only one, right? But many times when you're dealing with fertility, when you're dealing with, it's
Yeah.
a beautiful addition,
Yeah.
especially if you need to go the IVF route, right? And it can help
Right.
your body very much deal with IVF way better. It can
Okay.
potentially help with implantation.
Okay. That was gonna be my question. Can you do it at the same time as IVF, and would it inhibit any of the medication?
No, because it's
No.
only working with what
Its
your
own
body
energy. Oh,
wants
okay.
wants to work on. There's certain things that I'm not doing. Like if I know a client's going through IVF, one, I'm very cautious on the supplements, if at all,
Mm.
or just some kind of baseline stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'm not pushing detox. If I see a lot of things like, mycoplasma, parasites, that I'm not pushing that drainage and detox too
Mm.
heavy when they're going through IVF, right? So that's just something to understand too as a practitioner is just like, making sure that you're doing it in a way that is supportive, because it can be incredibly supportive emotionally and physically through that very
Mm.
strenuous and hard process.
Wow.
Yeah.
And if someone's listened to this whole episode and they think, "I don't really get it, but it sounds like something I want to know more about." How can they find a reputable practitioner that does this? Someone like yourself or somebody else if they wanted to go somewhere more local. How can they find someone that does this?
Yeah. I utilize a specific kind of equipment. So I go through their website to find like you can go through their website and find a practitioner if you want to look for somebody local.
Okay.
Um, Sometimes people do want somebody local, and that's okay. I will say like there has been no difference with people in person versus like virtually, but sometimes people just want that connection. So Quest is who I use. Quest 4 is I believe they have a practitioner portal. Um, but otherwise, um, you can contact me directly through my website, thewellnessparadigm.com. And that's where all my info is. Or on social media at shannon.salge. Um, but yeah, I mean, otherwise, it's a little difficult to find somebody that does this.
Mhm.
There's not a lot of us,
Yeah.
particularly ones that work physically as well as energetically. But that's probably your best bet. Is I really trust this equipment. It's more advanced
Yeah.
than many others, um, and so you can search their practitioners.
Neat. And you said this is something that you work on with people virtually, so you can work with them regardless of where they are in the nation and internationally?
Yeah, the world. Yeah, I've got some
Nice.
in the UK right now. I've got somebody in Ireland. The only annoying part is like the supplements or shipping, but that is what it is. But
Yeah.
yeah, it works just the same. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
energy knows no bounds. So
That's awesome, and with that, does the energy like, the frequency that you're putting into that, does it change at all over time or throughout the when you're sending it in the mail, does it change at all, or it remains constant until the bottle's done?
yeah, that's why we structure it, right? Because
Okay,
that will hold the frequency. Yeah. So if I did normal water, it would degrade over time, and
got it.
it would degrade in a shorter amount of time. I can't really tell you an exact time, but it's only a few days, maybe to 2 weeks,
Yeah,
versus like a full, 6, 8, 12 plus
yeah,
weeks. With structured water, it doesn't really lose it. But
yeah.
usually people's tinctures are only about 6 weeks long. So
Nice.
yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, and as we, again, wrap this up, are there any final thoughts that you have to share with the listeners?
I think I'll leave you with this. You don't have to fully understand for things to work. And this is coming from somebody who wants to ask all of the damn questions, wants to know everything about all of it and research the hell out of it. Sometimes you'll just know intuitively that this is the right fit, and you don't have to understand it to its core. And many of my clients don't truly, some of it, I don't even understand how it works so well, but I don't even care because the magic you see and the results and how quickly you see them, you just can't comprehend sometimes, and that's okay. But yeah, I'll leave it at that. Is, find something that intuitively feels really good for you, but also if it's something out of your ordinary, something that's a little bit different, be open to the possibility that things like this can also be really magical too.
Yes, awesome. I love that. I love that idea that you don't have to understand it to know that it works,
Yep.
because it just works. That's
Yep.
awesome. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. I enjoyed learning all that you had to share, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this information.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
And thank you so much, listeners, for paying attention to this whole episode. If you have any questions or any thoughts, feel free to put it in the comment section. And I'm excited to see you in the next episode. Take care. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Empowered Fertility Podcast. If you're looking for personalized support on your journey, whether that's through therapy or coaching, please reach out. Just complete the contact form linked in the show notes, and someone from my team will be in touch with next steps. Remember, you are not alone. You are not broken, and your story is not over. See you in the next episode.